For months, the Whittaker family story has been a mixture of fascination, heartbreak, and controversy. What began as a raw glimpse into rural poverty and generational hardship has evolved into something far darker, a debate that now questions the very foundation of the family's image. The latest question haunting the online community isn't about fame, money, or attention. It's about something much more disturbing. Did Betty Whittaker, the family matriarch, abuse her sister Lorraine? It's a claim that has shattered the fragile sympathy once surrounding the Whittakers, and it all started with a short, easily overlooked moment in a video that's now being dissected frame by frame across social media. The clip that started it all. The footage in question was part of an old soft white underbelly recording, one of many interviews filmed by documentarian Mark Lyda in Odd, West Virginia. In it, Lorraine sits beside Betty, her head tilted slightly, her hands fidgeting as Mark speaks softly to her. Her speech, fragmented and difficult to follow, is typical for someone with cognitive impairment. But at one particular moment, she utters something that, when slowed down and captioned, sounds eerily like the words, "Betty hit me." The room goes quiet. Mark doesn't immediately respond. Betty glances away. That moment, a second long at most, has now sparked one of the most intense debates the Whittaker story has ever seen. Did Lorraine actually say that? Was she referring to Betty? Was it even coherent speech at all? Thousands of viewers have played the clip repeatedly, posting slowed-down versions, using subtitles, filters, and AI-assisted audio enhancement to try and confirm what they believe they heard. Some claim it's undeniable. Others insist it's a misunderstanding, that Lorraine's words were distorted by her condition. But no matter the truth, the damage has been done. The internet's reaction. Within hours of the clip resurfacing, social media lit up. Comment sections flooded with outrage and heartbreak. After everything Betty did to care for them, now this? I knew something didn't add up. Look at Betty's face when Lorraine says it. She's been overwhelmed for years. That doesn't make her a monster. The opinions split into two camps. Those who believe Lorraine's statement revealed a hidden truth about long-term mistreatment, and those who believe Betty is being unfairly accused, her exhaustion misinterpreted as cruelty. Facebook groups dedicated to the Whittakers erupted into chaos. Threads filled with people analyzing every second of footage, posting side-by-side comparisons, even bringing in supposed body language experts to assess Betty's reaction. Some claimed her body stiffened. Others noted she averted her eyes and rubbed her palms, classic signs, they argued, of discomfort or guilt. But others countered, that's not guilt. That's embarrassment. She's being accused by her sister in front of a stranger and a camera. Anyone would look away. It's a digital war of empathy versus evidence, and in the middle of it all sits a woman who can't defend herself with words, and another who may not understand the gravity of what she's being accused of. The history between Betty and Lorraine. To understand the situation, you have to know the history of these two women. Betty Whittaker, the family's de facto caretaker, has been both praised and criticized for decades. She is not just Lorraine's sister, she's been her guardian, her nurse, her provider, and at times, her only connection to the outside world. Lorraine, who lives with severe cognitive and speech impairments, has always been deeply dependent on Betty. While some describe their relationship as loving and protective, others have long sensed an undercurrent of frustration. In interviews, Betty often referred to the burden she carried. She once said, "I try to take care of them best I can, but sometimes I get tired. Sometimes I just want peace." Those words, said years ago, hit differently now. When you live in poverty, caring for multiple disabled family members without resources, exhaustion turns into despair. And despair, as social workers often warn, can become dangerous. This is the context that investigators and the public now grapple with. Did Betty ever cross the line from caregiver to abuser? Or is she simply a woman who's been vilified for being imperfect in impossible circumstances? Adult Protective Services, the silent players. The removal of Lorraine, Timmy, and Ray from the family home earlier this year didn't happen overnight. Reports indicate that Adult Protective Services, APS, had been monitoring the family for months. The trigger for intervention remains unclear, but many now believe that moment in the video, where Lorraine allegedly says, "Betty hit me," could have been the catalyst. APS doesn't move quickly unless there's cause. For an adult with disabilities to be taken into protective custody, the agency must have evidence or credible suspicion of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. When the removals occurred, officials cited welfare concerns. They didn't name Betty directly, but their actions implied that she was either unable or unfit to continue as a caregiver. Still, no public record has confirmed physical abuse. No charges were filed. No official statement has been made. That silence has only fueled speculation. Was this an overreaction by the county, a preemptive strike to avoid liability after the family went viral? Or was it a quiet rescue, the kind that saves lives but destroys reputations in the process? The psychology of misinterpretation. Experts in speech pathology and psychology have weighed in, offering a third possibility, that Lorraine's speech may have been misheard or misrepresented. People with severe intellectual disabilities often form partial sounds that resemble words. Their speech can mimic emotional tones more than linguistic accuracy. A frustrated grunt or repetitive syllable might sound like a recognizable phrase, even when it isn't. So when a viewer expects to hear, "Betty hit me," their brain fills in the gaps. It's called auditory pareidolia, the same phenomenon that makes people hear words in static or songs in white noise. Combine that with the emotional weight of the story, and as one commenter put it, even if Lorraine didn't say it, something in Betty's face says she knows what it means. Behind closed doors. Those who have visited the Whittaker home before its recent upheaval describe a space that felt both tender and tense. The house, though humble and disordered, carried the weight of shared history. Every corner told a story, faded photos, half-broken furniture, and memories of decades surviving together. But it was also a place of confinement. The walls, small and closing in, were both protection and prison. In that kind of pressure, emotions run high. Caregivers snap. Words become sharp. Frustrations spill over into shouts, or worse, slaps. Not from cruelty, from exhaustion. If Betty ever did strike Lorraine, it may not have been premeditated. It may have been a single moment of desperation from a woman who had nowhere else to turn. But that doesn't excuse it. It only explains it. And the tragedy here is that Lorraine couldn't tell her story clearly, so the world is left to fill in the blanks. The cost of going viral. The Whittakers' rise to internet fame began as a documentary project, but it quickly became something else, a spectacle. Millions watched, commented, and speculated about their lives. Donations poured in, but so did judgment. Every flaw became magnified. Every action dissected. And in that scrutiny, the family's internal dynamics, the power struggles, the unspoken tensions, were exposed for the world to analyze. Some say fame ruined them. Others argue it simply revealed what was already broken. Either way, by the time this video clip resurfaced, the damage was irreversible. The Whittakers were no longer a family in crisis. They were a public case study in morality, poverty, and mental health. And now, with the accusation of abuse hovering over Betty, their story has entered its darkest chapter yet. What we don't know yet. As of now, no official confirmation exists of Lorraine's exact words. The original audio remains public, unedited but widely interpreted. Experts, viewers, and former visitors to West Virginia continue to argue online, dissecting a family tragedy one pixel at a time. Did Betty abuse Lorraine? Was it a misunderstanding? Or is the truth somewhere painfully in between? A cycle of dependency, frustration, and love that turned toxic under the world's gaze? Until someone speaks on record, or until Lorraine herself can safely and clearly communicate her truth, all we have are theories. The internet is impatient for answers. But the truth, especially in stories like this, doesn't move at the speed of outrage. How do you feel about this revelation? Do you think Lorraine was trying to tell us something, or was it a tragic misunderstanding? Comment below and share your thoughts. The whisper, "Betty hit me," didn't just echo across social media. It found its way into the ears of people who could actually do something about it. What began as a viral clip soon triggered something far more serious, a quiet, formal investigation that would fracture the Whittaker family forever. The call that changed everything. Sources close to the situation say that within days of the video's resurfacing, calls began flooding the local Adult Protective Services office. Concerned viewers, some hundreds of miles away, claimed they had witnessed evidence of abuse on camera. A few even sent time-stamps, transcriptions, and voice analyses demanding action. For the overworked, underfunded caseworkers in the small West Virginia county, this wasn't the first call they'd received about the Whittakers. The family had been on and off the radar for years, mostly for neglect concerns, not physical abuse. But this was different. This was public. This was national. And once the internet started asking questions, the system had to respond. A formal case was opened. Allegation: possible abuse of a dependent adult. Subject: Betty Whittaker. Complainant: anonymous, but clearly internet-based. It didn't matter who made the call. Once an allegation was filed, the county was legally obligated to investigate. And so began a process that would expose every crack in the family's fragile foundation. Betty's side of the story. When investigators first showed up at the Whittaker property, Betty reportedly didn't understand why. She'd been through visits before, health checks, safety inspections, caseworker interviews, but this one felt different. They weren't just checking cleanliness. They were asking questions that cut deep. Had she ever hit Lorraine? Did she ever feel overwhelmed? Was there an argument that got physical? Betty denied everything. "I've never hurt her," she allegedly said, her voice trembling. "I just tried to take care of her. Sometimes I yell, but I never hit her." To her, the idea was absurd. She'd spent her entire life as caregiver to her disabled siblings, bathing them, feeding them, protecting them. She saw herself as the only one who ever truly cared. And now, strangers with clipboards were calling her an abuser. It's a feeling countless caregivers have described, devotion suddenly interpreted as danger. But in Betty's case, perception was everything, and the internet's perception was already sealed. Lorraine's condition and testimony. The most challenging part of the investigation was Lorraine herself. She has limited language ability and difficulty processing complex questions. Still, APS caseworkers used specialized techniques, simplified questions, picture boards, and emotional prompts to gauge her responses. According to a source familiar with the process, Lorraine appeared calm but hesitant. When shown images of her family members, she recognized each one, nodding at Betty, smiling faintly at Larry, and blinking repeatedly when shown Patrick. Then came the critical moment. One of the workers reportedly asked, "Has anyone here hurt you?" Lorraine didn't answer directly. She looked down. Her lips moved. Some claimed she mumbled something that sounded like, "Betty." Others said it was unintelligible. No clear evidence. No physical bruises. No witnesses. But the seed of suspicion was already planted. For the investigators, the absence of proof didn't equal innocence. Combined with the viral video, the home's unsafe condition, and a long pattern of county involvement, it was enough to justify a drastic decision, temporary. To Betty, it felt like a kidnapping. To the county, it was protection. To the internet, it was justice. But to Lorraine, it was simply chaos. People touching her, moving her, separating her from the only home she'd ever known. She didn't scream or fight. She just looked back through the car window, her eyes unfocused, her lips trembling. That image, captured by a bystander's phone, circulated online within hours. The caption read, "Betty Whittaker watches as her family is taken away." It was heartbreaking. But like everything else in this saga, it divided people. Some saw a mother figure being punished unfairly. Others saw long overdue accountability. Inside the investigation, behind the scenes, APS gathered evidence. They conducted medical exams, interviewed former volunteers who'd helped clean the house, and reviewed every piece of available footage from Soft White Underbelly and other YouTube channels. Mark Lyda's crew reportedly cooperated fully, though they maintained that they had never witnessed physical abuse. "We never saw Betty strike anyone," one member said. "But we did see frustration. We saw shouting, arguing, tension." The videos became evidence, not in a courtroom, but in the informal court of county decision-making. Caseworkers noted that while Betty's love for her siblings was genuine, the conditions in which they lived were unsafe. The conclusion was cautious but firm. The environment itself was harmful, and Betty, despite her intentions, couldn't provide adequate care. That's how neglect and abuse blur together, not always through malice, but through exhaustion, poverty, and lack of support. Betty's response to the allegations. After the removal, Betty went silent for weeks. Then she reappeared briefly in a Facebook post shared through Patrick's page. Her words were short, raw, and defensive. "They took my family. I ain't hurt nobody. I love them. They know I do. I want them home." The post received thousands of reactions. Supporters called her a victim of the system. Critics accused her of hiding the truth. A few even demanded her arrest. Patrick tried to defend her, insisting that the rumors of abuse were lies spread by internet people who don't know nothing about us. He uploaded several videos of Betty cooking, sitting outside, or crying softly. "She's been through enough," he said. "She just wants them home." But the more they spoke, the more scrutiny grew. The internet wasn't interested in sympathy anymore. It wanted accountability. And Betty's every word, every gesture, every look was being dissected for guilt. The county's silence. Public agencies rarely comment on ongoing investigations, and this case was no exception. Reporters and YouTubers called the county office, but officials cited privacy laws protecting vulnerable adults. Still, leaks happen. An anonymous source from within the county allegedly told a local outlet that the family had been under long-term observation and that recent developments raised new concerns. When pressed for clarification, the source refused to elaborate, only saying, "Sometimes love isn't enough." That phrase, haunting and ambiguous, became the title of multiple reaction videos and online discussions. It encapsulated the central tragedy of the Whittaker case, that love, even genuine, can fail when circumstances overwhelm it. Public division. As weeks passed, the story turned into an emotional battlefield. On one side, people demanded that the county return Lorraine and the others home. They argued that family bonds matter more than bureaucratic rules. On the other, advocates for disability rights insisted the removal was justified. If the conditions are abusive or neglectful, one advocate said, it doesn't matter if it's family. Safety comes first. And yet, even among professionals, opinions differed. Some saw Betty as an overburdened woman who cracked under pressure. Others believed she was part of a cycle of generational trauma, both victim and perpetrator. The truth may be both. The power of a moment. One whisper, possibly misunderstood, had become a social phenomenon. A 2-second fragment of audio changed lives. It fueled investigations, family separations, and public outrage. But the most painful part is this. Lorraine, the person at the center of it all, might never fully understand what she said or what it caused. If she did say, "Betty hit me," she likely didn't grasp the weight of those words. If she didn't, she may still carry the confusion of being taken from home, not knowing why. In the end, it's not just about whether the phrase was real. It's about what it revealed. A system teetering between protection and intrusion, and a family caught between love and failure. How do you feel about the county's actions? Was it a necessary step for safety, or an overreach fueled by viral speculation? Comment below and share your thoughts. When the county stepped in and removed Lorraine, Ray, and Timmy from their lifelong home, the small town of Odd, West Virginia, felt the aftershocks before the rest of the world did. For decades, the Whittakers had been a private family, shielded from public eyes by mountains and isolation. But the cameras changed all that. Now, with the entire world watching, their pain was public property. And after the removals, the story that began as curiosity turned into chaos. Betty's silence and isolation. In the days after her family was taken, Betty vanished from social media. Patrick's updates stopped, and the house grew quiet. Locals described seeing her sitting on the porch alone, smoking, sometimes staring out into the woods where her brothers and sister used to walk. According to one neighbor, she didn't talk much. She just keeps saying, "They think I hurt her." For Betty, that accusation was worse than poverty, worse than judgment. It was betrayal. Lorraine wasn't just her sister, she was her child in every practical sense. For years, Betty had fed her, cleaned her, defended her from teasing neighbors. She'd fought for her to have clothes, for food stamps, for medical checkups. Now, in her mind, all that meant nothing. The world had decided she was a monster. Patrick tried to visit her and film short updates, but she reportedly refused. "I don't want no more cameras," she told him. "That's what got us here." Her anger wasn't directed at Lorraine, or even at the county, but at the audience. The people who turned her family into content, into headlines, into theories. Lorraine's new world. Lorraine, meanwhile, had been placed in a care facility several counties away. For the first time in her life, she was living in an environment with structured routines, regular meals, and trained caregivers. Those who visited said she seemed content, even cheerful, though often confused. She asked about home, about Betty, about Ray. But when conversations turned toward what happened, she grew quiet. Workers noted that Lorraine liked watching TV, coloring, and folding towels. But her favorite activity was simply sitting by the window. "She'll just hum," one aide said. "She looks peaceful, but sometimes she tears up when she hears the word home." There's no way to know how much she truly understands. Whether she remembers saying anything that sparked the investigation. Whether she misses Betty or fears her. The tragedy of Lorraine's life is that she has always been both seen and unseen, filmed but not understood, heard but not listened to. The internet turns on itself. While the Whittakers' real lives were being dismantled, the digital world continued its theater of outrage. Facebook groups split into factions. YouTubers posted reaction videos dissecting the Betty clip and debating whether Lorraine had indeed said, "Betty hit me." Some content creators built entire series around the allegation, monetizing every frame, every emotion, every speculation. They argued, they theorized, they claimed to seek truth. But in reality, the line between advocacy and exploitation had long blurred. Commenters fought viciously. "She's been caring for them her whole life. You think she never lost her temper? That's no excuse. If she hit her even once, that's abuse. Lorraine didn't mean it like that. Her speech isn't clear. Y'all are just protecting her because she's poor." Every opinion became ammunition. Every disagreement became a war. What none of them realized was that real lives were unraveling while they argued. Betty's access to food stamps and medical care became complicated after the removals. The donations that once helped pay for repairs stopped completely. The house, once full of noise and movement, turned still. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was fallout. Patrick's role and regret. Patrick, who had once acted as the Whittaker's spokesperson, found himself in an impossible position. He wanted to defend Betty, but any public statement risked worsening her case. In one live stream, he broke his silence briefly. "Y'all don't understand," he said. "She didn't hurt Lorraine. She's just tired. You take care of 3 people by yourself for 30 years and tell me how you act when you ain't slept in days." The comments were mixed. Some called him brave. Others called him manipulative. He later deleted the video. Behind the scenes, sources say Patrick tried to contact county officials to negotiate visits or updates but was told he had no legal standing. The only person who could petition for contact was Betty herself, and she was terrified to speak to any one official. "She doesn't trust nobody now," Patrick admitted. "She thinks they're all waiting to twist her words." He wasn't entirely wrong. Every move she made, every word she said, was being recorded, reposted, or analyzed. For a woman who had lived her entire life off the grid, that kind of scrutiny was unbearable. The unseen victims. In stories like this, the loudest voices often drown out the quietest victims. But what about Lorraine? What about Ray and Timmy? Each of them lost the only home they'd ever known. Whatever its flaws, it was familiar. They understood its smells, its rhythms, its chaos. Now they were in separate places, different rooms, new faces, strange routines. For individuals with intellectual disabilities, sudden change can be devastating. Experts say such removals, even if done for safety, often cause trauma. The body might be safer, but the mind carries confusion and grief. And in this case, none of them can explain how they feel. The psychology of caregiver breakdown. Professionals who reviewed the case privately, therapists, social workers, and advocates, have been quick to point out that caregiver stress is real and dangerous. Betty's life was a textbook example. She was the primary caregiver for multiple adults with profound disabilities, all while managing her own poverty and health issues. Without respite, support, or proper education, her mental state likely deteriorated. "People think abuse only happens from cruelty," one clinician noted. But often, it's the result of burnout, exhaustion so deep that empathy shuts down. You start snapping, yelling, maybe even hitting once or twice. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. That's the nuance the internet rarely acknowledges. It's easier to pick sides than to confront complexity. Betty might have loved Lorraine deeply and still failed her. Both things can be true. The media's responsibility. The deeper tragedy is how quickly the story was consumed and distorted. When the Soft White Underbelly project began, it aimed to highlight forgotten communities, not destroy them. Mark Lyda never imagined his camera would become part of a criminal investigation. Yet the power of media doesn't end when filming stops. Every clip that circulates, every comment that goes viral, changes real lives. And in the Whittaker's case, those changes were irreversible. Mark himself has remained largely silent since the removals, but in a brief response to questions about the controversy, he said, "My goal was to show humanity, not hurt it. What happened after, I can't control that. But I still care deeply about them. Whether that care helps or hurts is another question. A divided town. Odd, West Virginia, is a small place. Everyone knows everyone. And now, everyone has an opinion. Some residents have publicly defended Betty, saying she did what she could with what she had. Others whisper that the rumors of abuse might be true, that they've seen things, heard yelling, sensed tension. One local shop owner said, "They're all." Meanwhile, church groups and community organizations have started quiet efforts to visit the siblings now in care. They send cards, small gifts, even stuffed animals. But the atmosphere is heavy. Everyone knows it's too late to fix what's been broken. A moment of reflection. Weeks turned into months. The internet found new scandals. The comment sections moved on. But the people left behind didn't. Betty still wakes up every morning to an empty house. Lorraine sits by a window, humming the same few notes. Ray and Timmy live under supervision, their routines predictable but lonely. And somewhere between those parallel lives lies a truth that no one has fully uncovered. Did Betty hit Lorraine? Maybe once, maybe never. Did Lorraine mean what she said? Maybe yes, maybe no. But what's certain is that both of them have paid a price far greater than any online jury could impose. Because behind the whispers, behind the viral outrage, behind every headline, there's a family that loved each other in their own broken way. How do you feel about what's happened since the removals? Do you think justice was served? Or has the system and the internet gone too far? Comment below and share your thoughts. Months have passed since that short, shaky clip changed everything. The internet has quieted, the live streams have stopped, and the Whittaker home sits mostly dark. The world that once obsessed over every detail of this family's life has moved on. But for the Whittakers, nothing is the same. Where things stand now, Betty still lives in the family home, though it's emptier than ever. Neighbors say she keeps mostly to herself, avoiding cameras and calls. The county hasn't released official findings, but insiders say the case remains open under review. That means there was enough concern to intervene, but not enough to charge her. In plain terms, there's no proof of abuse. But there's no proof of innocence either. Lorraine, Ray, and Timmy are still in state care. They've adjusted to their new environment, though those close to the situation describe moments of confusion and longing. Lorraine still asks about home. Timmy sometimes cries when asked about his mother. Ray, as always, remains quiet, the same steady presence he's always been. Betty has requested visits, but approval has been slow. The county wants to ensure safe conditions, a phrase that breaks her heart every time she hears it. The internet's memory is short. Once, thousands debated her name in comment sections. Now, only a few small creators still discuss the case, the ones who refuse to let it fade. But the majority of viewers have moved on to newer scandals, fresher tragedies. That's how the internet works. It builds people up, tears them down, and forgets them. The Whittakers went from curiosity to cautionary tale in less than 2 years.